Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Hey, let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm Jonathan Bam Rivers. On my MTC call sheet today, we're going to talk about the state of the AFC North. We've been going through every division in the NFL as we prepare for the season kicking off in the next 3 weeks or so. We know the preseason is kicking off. But I want to talk about the state of the North because I want to talk about a division that's competitive, right? But it really wasn't that good last year, in my estimation. Will it be better in 2025? And also, of course, we're going to hit Chain Gang Chatter. We're going to answer your questions via social media. And I also want to make sure that you guys understand that the Bills being a Super Bowl or bust is one of the biggest nonsense narratives that I've heard in the past year. And I'm going to discuss why. And last but not least, Mahomes is motivated, but not for the reasons you think he is. All that and more here on Move the Chains. You know how we do it. Let's kick it off with the opening toss. All right, so we're talking about the state of the AFC North, the old black and blue division, right? The Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Browns. This is a division that's highly competitive. Any team can beat any team, right? And we saw that with the Browns. And if you're looking at the TV screen right now, you see the records of this division. So like I said, there's a competitive nature, but 2 teams made the playoffs. Not bad. You had a couple of divisions that had 3 teams, but the NFC North, I think a lot of people could say it was left to be desired in the AFC North, maybe because of the Bengals or what have you, but this is kind of where I stand with this division. This division has 4 teams that can beat up on each other throughout the entire season, okay? But this division typically has 1 team that's a viable Super Bowl contender, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. And I think I'll start there when I'm talking about this division. So we know what Lamar is. We know what Derrick Henry is. We know what Eric DeCosta, who the GM is. We know who John Harbaugh is. I want to focus on the defensive coordinator and Zach Orr, and this is why. Do you remember the beginning of the season last year? Man, the Ravens were bad defensively. They were bad defensively. And it's because Zach Orr was in his first season as a defensive coordinator. And I think one of the moves he made was taking Kyle Hamilton, their all-pro safety, and moving him back to safety because he's such a hybrid. They were trying to decipher what they wanted to do with him. But when they moved him back to safety, everything took off. And I heard an interview that Kyle Hamilton did where he said everybody just started to understand their assignments and understood how to lock in and trust each other. Well, I liken this to the Buffalo Bills the second half of 2023 when they transitioned from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady on the offensive side of the football. They figured out what their formula was to win football games. They figured out how to utilize Josh Allen in the best way was to utilize him less. And Zach Orr understood what the assignment was for the Ravens, and it took him a little time. Not only is he a young defensive coordinator, but he was a new defensive coordinator on a team that had Super Bowl expectations. And the back half of the season, the Ravens were one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the NFL. And I look at them now. If you look at their secondary, I think the Ravens will be able to run the football because they always do. If you have questions about the offensive line, I can understand some of them, but I think collectively they're going to be good enough because of the rushing attack that will bolster the offensive line. But in their secondary, man, you're talking about Marlon Humphreys. You're talking about Kyle Hamilton. You're talking about Jair Alexander, who was brought over in free agency. You're talking about Malachi Starks, who they drafted in the first round, and Marlon Humphrey. Every single person that's going to start in their secondary, guys, was a first-round draft pick. On paper, this might be one of the best, if not the best teams in football, talent-wise, 1 through 53. I'm not about to get into the conversation, can they get over the hump, because we understand what it is. I'm simply telling you the Ravens are doing it the right way, and they're in position to win the Super Bowl, and a lot of times that's all you can ask. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a team that I don't think anybody has a pulse on. I mean, I think I do, and I think some people who are objective do, but people either hate the Bengals or they love the Bengals. It's because they either hate Joe Burrow or they love Joe Burrow. But this is what I want to say about Cincinnati. Everybody knows that there are 3 phases of the game in football, right? There's offense, there's defense, and there's special teams. But let's talk about facets of the game. I think there are 5 facets. I think you got to be able to run the football and throw the football offensively. I think you need to be able to stop the run and stop the pass on defense, and you need to be able to play good special teams. So statistically speaking, the Bengals are only 40% in terms of viable when it comes to the facets of football. They had the number 1 passing attack last year. They had the number 1 passing yards per game, number 1 in passing attempts per game. So they threw the ball because they wanted to. They were 30th in rushing yards per game, but they were also 30th in rushing attempts. So the Bengals, it's not, I don't think, that they can't run the football. It's that they're not willing to run the football. And when you're not willing to run the football, you become one-dimensional. Now, they were 11th in special teams, which means they were okay, but I'm going to tell you when things changed for the Bengals. Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Jermaine Pratt, no longer on this team. Lou Anarumo, the defense coordinator, no longer on this team. These were the guys that helped them get to the Super Bowl when they upended the Chiefs in Arrowhead back in 2021. So they've chosen who and what they want to be. So I'm not going to be mad because that's what you chose for yourself. I'm not going to make excuses for you because that's what you chose. So the Bengals are a team that have a quarterback who can in any given year be an all-pro, any given year be a Pro Bowler, any given year be a possible MVP candidate, but they're not good defensively. And a lot of that is due to what the quarterback wanted, and a lot of that is due to the philosophical mindset and the philosophy of this team. So let's not make excuses for the Bengals. They simply have to be better moving into 2025. The Cleveland Browns, and I want to use this analogy for the Bengals and the Browns, guys. Let's say you have, look at your body. You know what the most important part of your body is? The most important part of your body is your brain. Without the brain, nothing works. But just because the brain is the most important part of your body doesn't mean that you should disregard how you take care of your heart. Doesn't mean you should disregard how you take care of your lungs. Doesn't mean you should disregard how you take care of your kidneys, because all that stuff plays a part in you being a successful human and being able to operate and literally walk around daily. So we know that the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. But just because that's it doesn't mean you should disregard every other spot. And I think that's what the Browns did and what the Bengals have done to a certain extent. But specifically Cleveland, not only do you give Deshaun Watson the most money in terms of guaranteed money in NFL history, you knew that there were damaged goods and a damaged brain, so to speak, when you brought him in, just because of what he's dealt with off the field and what he dealt with injury-wise. But not only did you bring in Deshaun Watson, you tried to make your offense be Deshaun Watson. And I don't understand why. I don't understand when you were in a situation where you were running the football and playing good defense in Cleveland because they have drafted well, where you tried to put everything on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson when he hadn't been healthy physically or mentally. And that's where Cleveland is. Now they're in a situation where they went out and got the brain of their organization that's not functioning the way it should be, and as a result of that, their kidneys are shutting down, their heart is shutting down, and their lungs are shutting down. Now, they're in a position, because remember, Kevin Stefanski guys won Coach of the Year in 2023. Why? Because they got to the playoffs with 5 different quarterbacks. Well, now that they have 6 quarterbacks on the roster, everybody's like, what are the Browns doing? They're trying to find a quarterback still. That in itself is a problem, but it wasn't a problem when y'all gave Stefanski Coach of the Year when he dealt with 5 different quarterbacks. Now they're trying to figure it out. So this is what the Browns have been ever since they tried to bring in the most important position in football, but didn't understand that just because it's the most important position doesn't mean you disregard everything else. And the Pittsburgh Steelers. So here's what I think about when I think about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. I think the Steelers are more equipped to be what everybody wanted Aaron Rodgers and the Jets to be. Everybody thought the Jets were a quarterback away, which wasn't true. Their offensive line was terrible. They didn't have any pass game. Their defense was good. Their defense was elite. But that was it for the Jets. So they weren't ever just a quarterback away. Now, I'm not sitting here saying the Steelers are just a quarterback away. I'm sitting here telling you that the Steelers are a far better organization right now than the Jets were when Aaron Rodgers signed with them. The Steelers are far more veteran-led right now than the Jets were when Aaron Rodgers signed with them. The Steelers have a far better head coach than the Jets did when they went there with Aaron Rodgers. So Pittsburgh, I'm not calling them a Super Bowl contender. I will say they're a playoff team because they have been every single year under Mike Tomlin almost. And that's who they are. So whatever the ceiling is for the Steelers is yet to be seen. I'm just trying to see what their veteran leadership looks like. DK Metcalf, Darius Slay, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, who were already there. TJ with the extension, Cam Hayward looking to get one. The Steelers are in a better position than the Jets were when they got Aaron Rodgers. But, of course, everybody's question is, what Aaron Rodgers will you get? That's the AFC North in my estimation. When we get back from the break, I'll be answering your questions via the Chain Gang Chatter. Back when we move the chains, right after this. Welcome back in to Move the Chains. Before I get to answer your questions via social media, I want to make sure I take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for hosting Move the Chains. I also want to thank you, the fans, for supporting this show on whatever platform you support the show on. It's truly appreciated. I also want to thank the best production crew in the business for always being ready, always making sure that any hiccups are taken care of early on. They are phenomenal. So shout out to the best production crew in the business. And again, you've seen the QR code on the show and you'll continue to see it. If you're hurting physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, make sure you click on that QR code, check out that information, and contact Robert, whose number will be on here at the end of the show. Having said all that, you know what time it is. It's time for the Chain Gang Chatter. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the questions via social media. You know I love it. It's one of my favorite aspects of the show. So what do we have first? What's Cam Ward's biggest strength? I think Cam Ward's biggest strength is his situational awareness and his calmness. So this is what I mean when I say situational awareness. Like Cam Ward never looks like he doesn't know where he is or what's going on the field. He always looks aware of the situation, which allows him to play fast with his strong arm and his quick feet and to be athletic because he is. So again, it's easy to look at a quarterback's physical traits and say, man, his arm is so strong, his physical stature is what you want out of a quarterback. But that doesn't always transition or translate to victories, no matter how great you were in college. Cam Ward is a work-first, cerebral kind of quarterback. And it causes him to sit in the pocket literally and not move, guys, and still deliver the football where he wants, from inside the pocket or from outside the pocket, whatever platform. His situational awareness and his calm nature, in my estimation, are what make him fast mentally and physically, and that's his biggest strength. All right, what's my next question? How significant was the James Cook signing in Buffalo? I think the extension of James Cook was phenomenal because, to me, it solidified that Buffalo is going to be the team that they became under Joe Brady second half of 2023 and all of last year. James Cook, I don't think would have gotten the opportunity to become the guy to get a $48 million extension if he were still under Ken Dorsey, because that's not the offense they were running. It was Josh Allen and everybody else. James Cook now is a very, very vital cog in the offense being run in Buffalo, and deservedly so, and rightfully so. So this is a great opportunity for James Cook. There was a great opportunity for the Bills because it allows them to be who they are moving forward, which is a certified run-first team. Even with Josh Allen, he can now make throws when he needs to or when he has to, not because he just wants to. Shout out to James Cook and shout out to the Bills for getting this job done. All right, last question here. All right, do narratives have an impact in gameplay? I think they do. They absolutely do. And I don't mean they impact gameplay as in officials are trying to cheat for a certain team. Everybody thinks there's a doggone conspiracy theory, especially like with the Chiefs or even with the Eagles, basically with teams that are good. But think about this. If a team is said to be very good defensively in the secondary because they play a lot of press man coverage, then sometimes you'll see officials allow them to play press man because what have officials been told to do? Not get in the way. So that narrative in itself, hey, officials don't get in the way. So when officials don't get in the way, sometimes it affects the game because they should get in the way and call a flag because it actually happened. Do we also remember the fact that you can't hit a quarterback below the knees now? Remember when Tom Brady got hurt and everybody said, well, if Brady didn't hurt, the Super Bowl might have been through New England again and they made the playoffs but didn't win. So now you can't hit a quarterback in the knees. So that literally changed the gameplay. The narrative of the quarterback being the most important person on the field changed gameplay. So this isn't from the standpoint of anybody trying to cheat anybody or put anybody in a position that's more advantageous than anybody else. It's simply that a narrative becomes real in a lot of people's minds, and I think nonchalantly, I also think inadvertently, it can affect gameplay. Hey, when we come back from the break, the AFC East champions for I don't know how many years in a row are Super Bowl or bust. It's not true, and I'll tell you why after the break. Back with my nonsense narrative right after this. Hey, welcome back into the show, and it's time for my favorite segment to move the chains. It's time for my nonsense narrative. All right, so the Bills are Super Bowl or bust, and I don't understand the logic here, but I understand a lot of people want it to be because it's Sean McDermott. Listen to me, everybody. When was the last time the Bills went to the playoffs before Sean McDermott got there? Thank you. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So if you're going to tell me it's Super Bowl or bust, that means you're going to change something. Does that mean get rid of the head coach? You don't think Sean McDermott's a great head coach? He hasn't won a Super Bowl. Do you know how many head coaches are in the Hall of Fame that didn't win a Super Bowl? Or do you know how many players are in the Hall of Fame that didn't win a Super Bowl? This is all I'm saying. I'm not saying the Bills can't get better and don't need to get better. You have to try to get to the Super Bowl because that's the ultimate goal. What I'm saying is there are certain times where, everything's based on timing. And if Sean McDermott and his Buffalo Bills team are in another time in the NFL, they probably would have won a Super Bowl, but they haven't been able to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. They haven't been able to get over Andy Reid, and they haven't been able to get over Patrick Mahomes. They haven't been able to get over Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie and all these Chiefs. That's the thing, Brett Veach. That's the thing. The organization is phenomenal. It's just not the most phenomenal organization in the conference in which they need to get to a Super Bowl. It may not even be timing. It may be conference affiliation. If the Bills were in the NFC, right, I've talked about how many different teams have been to the Super Bowl in the Mahomes era and the Reid era in Kansas City. Out of the NFC, maybe the Bills would have been there. The Bills are an organization that want to win a Super Bowl. They put themselves in position to win a Super Bowl. They just haven't got it done. You know what the truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen? Maybe they won't with this iteration. But it doesn't mean it's the best iteration, because I ask you this. If you think Sean McDermott is on the hot seat, are you replacing him with Andy Reid? Are you replacing him with Mike Tomlin? Are you replacing him with Sean McVay? I'm asking those questions because those are some of the coaches whom I deem to be as good, if not better, than Sean McDermott. Are you replacing him with Jim Harbaugh? What about DeMeco Ryan? What about Todd Bowles? They're not going anywhere. So you're not going to replace him because you don't have anybody to replace him with. Plus, the Bills are right where they need to be. Just because they haven't gotten it done yet doesn't mean they can. It doesn't mean they won't. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final segment of the show. The best quarterback in the league is motivated, and not for the reasons you think. Back with the final segment of Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back to Move the Chains. It's time for the final segment of the show, which means it's time for the final drive. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes is motivated. But he's not motivated because they lost the Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. He's motivated because he always is. There's no other reason why he would be considered one of the greatest of all time already if he weren't always motivated. He's always got that internal desire and that internal and physical toughness to do what he needs to do to help his team win. So, yes, he and the Chiefs are motivated, but not because Philly beat them, because that's what built the organization that they are now. Hey, don't forget, you can not only catch us right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, but you can catch us on YouTube. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, like. It's at @move_the_chains. Leave a comment, subscribe, guys. Hit the notification bell. We're all here for it. Hey, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. And I want you to remember that QR code. If you're hurting physically, spiritually, mentally, or financially, look at the QR code and call Robert. And as always, right here on Move the Chains, until next time, God bless.